have you talk a little bit about Bitcoin Cash site and your goal to, I think it is get a million different uh, businesses using and accepting Bitcoin Cash, right?
To onboard 1 million new people across, across the whole BCH ecosystem. Yeah, not
Okay.
necessarily just merchants, but people.
Tell me a little bit about the plan.
Okay, well, so basically, we want to onboard new people to Bitcoin Cash, which is peer-to-peer electronic cash, the true Bitcoin, in my humble opinion. And well, that we have a few different strategies, but step one is always to onboard new merchants, right? So we're onboarding lots of new merchants, particularly in Latin America, across the developing world. We're looking for people to help us do that. We're about to start up in the city of Ibadan in Nigeria, third largest city. And we're also looking for people in other African, Latin American, and South Asian countries. And then once we have merchants, what we do is we can hold events at the place of business of those merchants, and there we can educate new people, onboard new people, get them set up with a wallet, give them a little bit of Bitcoin Cash. And then at that point, really, we need to start looking at inflows. People need to be able to earn directly in Bitcoin Cash, because some people say, oh well, Bitcoin Cash or whatever crypto is just superior money, so people will earn their pesos or their whatever their local currency is, and then they'll buy Bitcoin Cash and then they'll spend it, and that just doesn't work. That doesn't work like that. The incentives are not lined up for that, because if you spend in local currency, and if your local currency is doing okay, it's not, inflation's not out, not crazy, then you're just going to hold that and spend in that, because that's a little bit easier. That's easier. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to think about inflows, and there are a few different. There are two really big sources. One which is like outsourcing, freelancers and whatnot, and the other is remittances. And so have a business plan around remittances, and how we can use Bitcoin Cash to help people transfer money across borders much more quickly, in a much more decentralized fashion, much more inexpensively. And then we'll have inflows, and then people will have Bitcoin Cash, and they'll be looking for ways to use it. Whether that be to get some Flex USD and earn a return on that as a savings vehicle, on a low risk savings vehicle, or whether it's to spend it at the local supermarket, or fund their education or whatever.
So, are you seeing a lot of use of Bitcoin Cash in Medellin right now? Is that how you came up with
Medellin,
this?
yeah. Right now, not so much. We're not as active here in Medellin. We're mostly active in Venezuela right now. And the reason is the whole virus situation. Colombia has overreacted terribly, terribly to the situation, and it's very hard to hold events or to do business here right now. But before this all happened, we were seeing a lot of use. We had more than 500 merchants that were active here in the city. We were doing events all the time.
Okay, so that's kind of pulled back. What activity do you see I'm familiar with the Venezuelan situation. Um, what activity are you seeing using Bitcoin Cash in that environment and in that country?
Well, I think the number one use case is going to be remittances, because so many Venezuelans have left the country. Millions, maybe 4 to 6 or more million people have left Venezuela, and not all of them, but many of them have left behind children, older parents and whatnot, and they depend on this person who left sending some money home so that they can continue to exist, really. And right now there is kind of some people use Western Union, but really the formal channels for sending remittances are kind of vulnerable, kind of a bit wonky, because of the whole U.S. versus Venezuela situation. And what remains then is kind of a patchwork, a fragmented patchwork industry where, the money you try to send home doesn't always arrive, right? So that's number one. I would say number two is as a safe haven, because people, like, there is, the whole hyperinflation situation in Venezuela has evolved. I mean, it's evolved to the point of ridiculousness. I think because there's just not enough currency. There's not enough currency. Banks and credit cards and whatnot don't work terribly well. The credit limits on the credit cards are ridiculously small. They're not, like, you can't buy anything with that. The economy has dollarized to a large extent, but even that, I'm not sure that that's able to keep up. You can easily get Bitcoin Cash at local.bitcoin.com or via Binance, and then secure your wealth in a whole number of different ways.
So what can kind of give us a little bit of a history of how you positioned yourself or found yourself in Medellin, Colombia, and then tell us a little bit more about why you feel that Bitcoin Cash is the true Bitcoin.
Okay, well, let's see. After college, graduated from the University of Chicago. I rented a room on the north side of the city, and it turns out the landlord was Colombian. We became friends, and he said, you have to come visit Colombia. So this was 1994, year after they killed Pablo Escobar. Oh, wow. And I visited, and I really liked it. It's a beautiful place. The mountains, the weather, the people. It's all so very, very nice. And so that's how I got connected with Medellin, which previously I'd only read about, in news stories. So I think there's a lot of confusion around, what happened, in the past with Bitcoin Cash, and what is Bitcoin. I think to discover what Bitcoin really is, you just need to read the white paper. It's peer-to-peer electronic cash. It's cash,
right? Digital money, as I call it.
Yeah, it's a payments system essentially. And so, at some point that got off the rails, and people decided that it, should become. Well, I think even before the whole store of value narrative came into vogue, the development team, the GitHub repo and whatnot of Bitcoin Core, the software, the actual Bitcoin software, appears to have been captured, right? And then they formed a for-profit company called Blockstream, and then Blockstream all of a sudden had all these business plans about, with Liquid and Lightning Network, about how transactions were going to happen off-chain, right? Which is really interesting, because then they get to keep the transaction fees that normally would go to the miners to secure the network. It seems to me that that's a conflict of interest, and so Bitcoin was meant to grow. It was meant to work for payments, to serve the whole world. But today, Bitcoin transaction fees, Bitcoin BTC transaction fees, are routinely in the $12 to $30 range. So essentially what happens, and they talk about, well, people should stack sats, right? You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin, just stack sats. So, the way it works is that in my wallet, in my BTC wallet, I could have hundreds of addresses. And so every time, hundreds of UTXOs. And so every time I stack some sats, they're going to end up on a different address. And so, if I have like 20 addresses, each with a little bit of BTC, let's say $5 each, and the transaction fees are $12, well, those are, it's going to be really expensive to move those, right? It's really going to be expensive to spend those. And somebody might say, well, I don't need to spend those, it's a store of value, right? But at some point, you're going to need to do something with that, whether you're putting it up as collateral for a USDT loan, whether you want to transfer it to paper wallet, like, you have to be able to move it, otherwise it's just a big rock. I don't know how that could store value. I mean, I guess that worked for like the Polynesians, but like, this is 2021. This is not Polynesia like in 3,000 years ago or something. And so essentially, if you have a UTXO that has less than, let's say, the transaction value fees of Bitcoin BTC right now are $12, and if you have UTXOs that are worth less than $12, you can't move them. You cannot move them. You can't spend them because essentially you would be throwing away the UTXO just to pay the transaction fee. And so isn't this interesting? They've turned Bitcoin BTC into this system where only the rich can use it. And all of a sudden, everybody's so happy that all these rich institutions, Wall Street is adopting it, when the little guy, who they're telling to stack sats is the chump of that situation, because he's essentially pouring his money into an extremely illiquid vehicle. And every bit of Bitcoin BTC that is essentially taken out of circulation like this only enhances the scarcity of the coins of the big dogs like Elon Musk or Michael Saylor, or put XYZ large Wall Street institution here. And so essentially, not only is Bitcoin BTC unusable, right, for transactions, not only do the Bitcoin BTC people say, no, you shouldn't, you should use a credit card instead, but they've essentially co-opted, they've participated in the co-option of Bitcoin BTC by large institutions, by the nation state, essentially by the United States. And that's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin. And what happened in 2017 is that Bitcoin split.
Yep, I remember that.
And it's not that Bitcoin BTC remains the original Bitcoin. We have to judge which one is the original Bitcoin or which one we want to use by the characteristics. And on Bitcoin Cash, the transaction fees are always below 1 cent of a dollar, right? So like sometimes as low as 1/10 of a cent. So it enables micro payment use cases. It means that you can make full use of it. You can have hundreds of UTXOs in a wallet, and you can move them all. It enables things like Noise.cash, which is a Twitter-like social network where people get tipped Bitcoin Cash, sometimes very small amounts. And that project has onboarded tens of thousands of new users to Bitcoin Cash in the last year. I believe the great majority from the developing world, people who before didn't have access to anything really other than just saving, in cash or buying chickens, right, or other very primitive forms of savings. And now there's video, there's photos, them holding up their Bitcoin Cash wallets, and they have balances on there, and those balances are growing, right, because the price of Bitcoin Cash has been going up over the last couple of weeks.
Very much.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can't use the coin to send $1 as a tip or repay your friend $5, then that's not Bitcoin, and you can't do that on Bitcoin BTC. Some people say you can using Lightning Network, but that is custodial, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think
you have to entrust your sats to somebody else in order for it to be practical.
No, I think you're right. I remember hearing a Citibank executive make a comment back at the end of February that Bitcoin will wind up being an exchange of value or transfer of value between large corporations and countries. And I kind of think that that's probably what's going to wind up happening. So I do understand where you're coming from, because in my opinion, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I think there is a place for altcoins. Now, of course, not all of them. I think the common person is going to wind up using whatever altcoin of choice that they choose, and whatever ones becomes more adopted. So I think that's essentially where you're going, and it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to be cheaper, which is what you're saying with Bitcoin Cash.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also this term altcoin, it has no meaning anymore. Bitcoin BTC itself is an altcoin because it doesn't represent the vision of Bitcoin Cash, and the vision of Bitcoin, the original vision of Bitcoin, which matters because that, if you look at the white paper, that is innovative. The fact that each person can hold custody their own money, they don't have to trust a third party. The network can transact, can process transactions without having a central authority. These and other things are what make Bitcoin Bitcoin. That's what it's what makes it matter. And Bitcoin BTC is destroying that, which means really this whole altcoin thing. This is a term invented by Bitcoin maximalists to prop up their scam, and it is a scam. And this idea that large corporations and governments are going to adopt something as revolutionary as to be called Bitcoin is it doesn't make sense. It's self-contradictory. Corporations and nation states are part of a network where that's antithetical. It's really antithetical to the values of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is about egalitarianism. It's about access to everyone. It's about nobody being excluded, right? It's about self-custody, self-sovereignty. And those values don't have a place in the nation state world.
That's very true. That's very, very true. Very, very true. So where do you think Bitcoin Cash's value going to wind up going? I'm sitting here looking at a Coinbase chart. It got as high as $1,600, which is pretty impressive. Where do you think it's going to go in this bull run?
Well, I don't make price predictions. I don't really consider myself qualified. I'm not a technical analysis kind of guy. I'm a vision guy, and I focus on building businesses and communities. But the all-time high for Bitcoin Cash was 4,000 USD. And a lot of other coins have already broken their all-time highs. So I would expect that Bitcoin Cash is going to break its all-time high soon.
I mean, personally, I can see that happening in this bull. I think there's going to be a lot of strong price activity on the upside for a lot of projects. And, I think everyone's kind of anticipating that. And what's interesting is as the industry continues to look at the number one and number two coins, Bitcoin and Ethereum, the numbers just keep getting higher and higher as people keep drilling down into the economics of what is possible in terms of how they could be used, which will only just bring everything up more. Not a lot. I take that back. I'm hearing some rumblings that, where this particular bull run is going to be focused again on Bitcoin and Ethereum and how they can perform, and DeFi, of course, and its adoption, that in about 4 years on the next bull run, it's going to really be about which projects achieve adoption, and they're going to kind of drive the market. What's your thoughts on that, if you have any at this point in time, considering you're trying to work towards onboarding 1 million users for Bitcoin Cash right now? What do you have a time frame for when you think that's going to occur? Do you think it'll be more like 4 years out? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, plotting things in time in the crypto space is kind of hard because sometimes things, resistance or work builds up, and all of a sudden things flip over. Really, I think that 2017 was the time when everybody needed to wake up and focus on real world adoption. And I feel like the crypto ecosystem is still not really focused on real world adoption.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah. So we need to focus on it now. As to when it will happen, I don't know. We need leaders to step forward, people who are going to go out there and educate people, one-on-one, small groups, large groups. People are going to make videos that are not just about the price, but about educating people about how to really use it. I have friends who open up XYZ wallet and they're immediately confused. They go to Binance and, they're like, you can get a coin and, there's the BEP version and the ERC version and the TRX version, and they're like, what the hell is this?
Yes.
So education is really what we need to focus on. We need to create good education, and we need to connect people to that. And we need better tools. Wallets are still at a 1.0 level. They're HODL wallets. they enable you to send, receive, and hold. But we need wallets. We need level 2 utility wallets, right, which are connected to all the use options. And I think in the whole DApp space is
Yeah.
leading the way a little bit. We need the dApps, but we also need things that are connected to the real world, like buying the things that we need every day, right? Because people, to have a sustainable crypto economy, people need to earn it, and then they also need to be able to spend it.
Yep.
So that we have a circle, right? Some
Right.
people say, oh, well, I go to my local chain and I spend it. And of course, what happens is it immediately is cashed out to an exchange, ending the economic circle.
Cycle.
Yeah. Or I've seen there's some scheme active in Thailand and some other places where actually, like, with the app, they help you sell your crypto first, and then you actually pay in fiat.
Ooh, wow.
That's not crypto adoption,
Nope, it's not.
Yeah, we need to see complete economic circles, earn, spend, spend again, et cetera, et cetera.
You know what? I agree a lot with you in the concept that there needs to be a lot of education to help people feel more comfortable with the use of crypto. And that's part of where my why my channel was birthed, is that I got into the space in 2017, and I spent basically from 2017 to 2020 really educating myself and getting comfortable with this space. And now that I've spent that time, I do feel comfortable now that I can begin to expose to people what I've learned. And here's what I find very interesting. Even today, I'm 58, so I don't expect a whole lot of people my age to really feel comfortable with cryptocurrency. But what I find interesting, people that are in my children's age bracket, which is in the 20s, I'm surprised how many people in that age bracket are not aware of crypto, let alone not aware. And so, so I think your statement that the space really needs to push adoption. This is what I see. I feel that the technology is still having to get worked through to where adoption becomes very fluid and easy as a part of our everyday life. And that's separate from the regulation problem and the regulation fight between the governing agencies of the world. That's a whole nother topic. But I just think pragmatically, it's still too cumbersome for people. And that's part of what's happening in terms of slowing the adoption curve down. And again, that's just my humble point of view. What are your thoughts? It kind of sounded like that's kind of what you were saying when you were talking about the dApps.
Yeah, I think you're right on. But also we have to be careful not to use that as a reason to not push forward with adoption. We have to keep pushing forward with it, because to make those tools, to make the UX that we need to be in constant contact with target markets across the globe, so that we can get the feedback we need, right? Because it's not like somebody's going to say, oh, I have the perfect interface for a mobile app for crypto. It's right here. It's done. I brought it down from the ivory tower. We're good to go. No, it's a process. It's always a process. Bring down something, show it to people, feedback comes back, improve it again and again and again, right? Yep. Yeah. So we have to be careful. And I'm not saying that you said this, but I know people who have said this, and they said, no, it's too early. We can't do anything here, right? And so they just cut off that process, right? So of course, if the process is not going, we're not going to be making progress. We're never going to get to where we need, right? So even though it's painful, and there are pain points, and there are people who are like, what the hell's going on here? We still have to keep trying.
Wow, that's interesting that there would be some people that would say it's too early. One of the things that I look for as an investor in the crypto space are the business use cases of a particular project, which lead to increased adoption. And so that's kind of where my focus is at. And there's a lot of great projects out there that I think that are trying. I like Link, I like Algorand, I like AMP. And I think that as time progresses, those particular projects will see a lot of improvement in terms of price, but also a lot more familiarity with the common person. And that's one of the reasons why we reached out to you is as I did my own research and getting myself more ingrained into the crypto echo space, you came up and I saw some of your videos. I liked what you were doing. I went to your website, took a look at that. And I think it's one of the things that I think is really important is since we have YouTube as a platform, is for channels to take the time to really do some education. Yeah, it may not get all the views that you want, et cetera, but I think that the general public are going to be looking for those channels that give them something a little bit more than just a price prediction and hype. And so that's why I reached out to you because I want to be those channels that yes, we talk about investing. An educational component where they can get some good content to help them understand what they're looking at and what is the crypto space and which projects would they want to invest in, their time and as well as their finances. And so I
and that
for what you're trying to do there in Medellin and how you're trying to expand it. And that's why I wanted to reach out because I wanted to be a part of the process that you were going through to help expand the awareness. Because in here in California, when I was talking to some people that I meet with that talk about Bitcoin, one of the things that came out was the use case for Bitcoin, how it was slower, how there's better technologies and quicker and cheaper coins out there. And one person made the comment that Bitcoin Cash would become more the everyday man's Bitcoin. And I think that not that that's the catchphrase, but it may wind up actually being the truth as all this flushes out over the next 4 years or so. Because I think that the next bull run is going to strongly be about adoption. Because after you get all these corporations who are storing up value, they're trying to hedge against what happens to the dollar, right? And what happens with the next global currency. And then now the governments are coming in realizing that they need to do. So it's going to take them a little while to get on board, if you will, whatever CBDC they come up with. So I think, in the next 4 years, adoption is going to really be a big, strong push. I think.
And a channel like yours that's doing education, I mean, that may not, get 1 million views tomorrow, like a girl, buying a new dress or doing her makeup, right? But that's the kind of deep work that pays off over time, right? That builds credibility, that becomes an evergreen resource for people, that people are like, holy cow, this is valuable. I'm going to save this. I'm going to share it. So I think that, I'm always thinking about it, investing for the long term, not just, my financial resources, but my time,
yes.
My work, right? Because at the end of the day, I want it to add up to something, I want there to be an impact, I want to be able to believe, to see the evidence that, I've helped somebody, I've had some kind of impact.
No, and I concur with that philosophy, and I have the same belief system. And the thing that I learned, I said I got involved in 2017, many times thought about doing a channel, but I wanted to wait until I felt that I had substance, to be quite frank. And I got to a point where I feel that. And as I watched the space, the thing that I really learned is that this is not, even though there are those that have gotten very financially wealthy quickly, this isn't a get quick rich scenario. That I think being in the crypto space is an investment of time, and you have to see it long term. When people ask me about buying something, I will tell them you need to stay in this game for at least 2 halving cycles before you decide to really exit. I know that Grayscale advises their investors that they should have like a 10-year horizon before they decide to exit a position. And that's just from an investment point of view. But I also think from an education point of view, you need to consider that it's going to take some time because this is new technology, right? It's not new 2009. I mean, this has been developing a couple decades before that, as I've done my research looking into Halfpenny, et cetera. I think now, even with adoption, I projected out there 4 years. I mean, maybe it's that, maybe it's less, maybe it's not, but I really see the technology really beginning to advance and new things coming onto the market. One of the projects I watch right now, because it has to do with speed, is Hydera Hashgraph. I haven't like taken a deep dive to understand that technology because I wouldn't consider myself a tech kind of guy, but I became aware of it and I watch it and I've invested a little bit in it. From what I'm hearing, it's like the next generation of technology beyond blockchain. And so I think people that if they want to stay present and current and be able to have the legacy that we just communicated, whether that's a legacy of financial wealth or a legacy of elements other than financial, I think you need to pay attention and be committed to it. So I've made that commitment. And obviously you have as well.
Yeah. Yes, I've been in the space since 2011, and I'm a libertarian, market anarchist, agorist, and so that's how I discovered this in the first place, because I'm in those communities as well. For me, it's about the vision and the paradigm, right? So it's not just about the technology; it's also about the paradigm, right? Because if you look at if you just look at it from a technological point of view, people will say at this early stage, at least, that, it's just easier to use a bank account. It's just easier for me to use a credit card on my bank account, or I'm going to build a blockchain app. It's just easier for me to use my SQL, right? This requires a paradigm shift, because the bottom line is that right now, and, for quite some time now, money has been issued on an arbitrary basis by a centralized authority, the Federal Reserve System in the United States. And so basically what happens is, you work X hours in a week in order to buy Y things to sustain your life and the lives of your loved ones, to have a good life, right? But tomorrow the Federal Reserve says, well, we're going to increase the monetary supply by 10%. And that money is going to go to the federal government so that it can spend it to do infrastructure projects, which probably have a large component of pork barrel spending, right? So what you have is this network of people around the nation state, and they get that new money first. And for them, when they spend it, they get to spend it at full value.
Yes.
But you feel the follow-on effects of that, because all of a sudden that X that you got every week, it doesn't buy your Y anymore. It doesn't buy everything that you're used to buying. And so essentially what happened is you traded the same amount of your time, but you got less for it. Yep. They actually stole your life from you. They stole time from you. They stole your labor. They stole your value in order to get handed off to their network of friends. And this is a situation that has been going on, in the 19th century. Thankfully, we had, Andrew Johnson and whatnot, who fought very valiantly against central banking. But we've had this for more than a century now in the United States. And we're seeing its ultimate conclusion now with all of the inflation that's starting to come out. And basically what, that means is, your savings, is evaporating. Your purchasing power is evaporating. If your wages and your earnings are not going up consistently with the price of the goods that you need, they're stealing from you. Yeah. And the nice thing about Bitcoin Cash is it has a predetermined emission schedule. It's based on math. It's based on an algorithm, right? It's a deflationary system also. So over time, each unit tends to gain more purchasing power. Mm-hmm. And so, this is a neutral system. It's not about who wins the next election, right? There's no election for president who appoints a Federal Reserve chairman in Bitcoin Cash. We don't have that. We have taken the human element out of that. Now it's neutral. Now it's predetermined. Everybody knows the rules. And so what that does is bring greater predictability to the economic lives of everyone. It brings great advantages, to all of us. And really, it's an issue that touches the heart of everything. What's the scarcest resource that each of us has? It's our time.
It's our time.
It's not our money. It's not our house. It's not, our drinking water. It's our time. That's the most valuable thing.
How can people get in touch with you? What's the easiest way? Is it to go to your website?
So, yeah, you can go to BitcoinCash.site, and there's an email address in the footer, or you can email me, George at panmoney.com. That's PANMONI.com. Or George Donnelly, all one thing on Twitter. You can just look me up on Twitter.
Good. And who are the people that you're looking to partner with? And like, let's say for the rest of this year, as you're looking through your business plan, because you mentioned that you are an entrepreneur and that you create businesses and things of that nature, who would you like to have reach out to you?
So we need software developers, mobile app developers to realize the business plan. You can check out the business plan at panmoney.com/bizplan. Anybody can read it there. We need investors. We're raising funds for that. Also, we need people across the developing world in major cities who would like to earn Bitcoin Cash to sign up for our course at bitcoincash.site. And anyone who has ideas or questions, anybody who says, hey, I don't understand this, I'd really love to hear from them as well, because we're producing a major tutorial series over the next few months. But I think the biggest place where my team can have an impact is via our business plan.
Great. Well, I definitely want to stay in touch with you, George, and feel free to reach out to me now that we have exchanged contact information. That is, you're developing new things. If there's something that you want to get out to the public and reach out to different channels, I'd be more than welcome to support what you guys are doing, get you guys back on for an interview, and let other people know in my little small world what you guys are doing down there in Medellin.
Thanks, Christopher. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, and I'm absolutely glad that you and I are in contact as well.
Good. All right. Well, you have a great one, and blessings down there in Medellin.
Thank you. You have a great one as well.